There was a famous film critic named Roger Ebert. He's now deceased. There are still a lot of websites up with his reviews. He's still famous to this day. Every so often, he would offer political commentary on a film, and he would be accused of racism. I never once saw him do this himself, but I kind of wonder if he was sitting there watching and waiting in the comment section for someone to point out, his wife is black. For someone to post a photograph of him together with his wife and say, look, now, Roger Ebert, I've read plenty of his reviews. I've read his reviews dealing with political matters and specifically relations between African Americans and white Americans. Roger Ebert was not racist. But this being the 21st century, it was probably inevitable that sooner or later someone would accuse him of racism, and probably he all his life took a certain kind of amusement from the fact that he happened to be married to an African American woman, that he had this get out of jail free card whenever this accusation was made. I know another white American stand-up comic who every so often is accused of being racist, and people point out, his wife and the children he's raising with his wife are black. His wife had kids from another husband before him and stuff. He's very much part of the black community. He lives a certain life. Like, if that guy living that life, coming from that background, has some commentary about his experience with the African American community, he's probably entitled to some kind of perspective to some extent with a little bit of leeway, and he's probably not racist. Probably. I made a video here on YouTube that was banned for being racist against the French. And you're about to see that video. You can't see the original upload because it was first demonetized, then censored, then outright deleted. So it went up the scale of how censored it was. And you know what? I got married to a French woman. You know what? I'm still in divorce court trying to divorce a French woman. I have a daughter, and I can't say she's half French, because it's not just that her mother is French. She's born and raised and going to school in France. I feel I have a daughter who's French. I feel I'm involved enough with French culture that if I want to make some humorous statements, if I want to make some satirical statements, if I want to offer some commentary about life in France, I really do feel that YouTube should not censor and shut down my video as racist. It's that time, people. It's time to spin that wheel. It's time to play that game. Blame the victim. That's right. I'm going to say it. You know who's responsible for the fact that coronavirus has been vastly more devastating in France than it was in Japan or Taiwan, which are, in case you hadn't seen a map, right next door to China? Do you know who's to blame? The French. One of my most common experiences living in France, married to a French woman, having a French child, was walking into a bakery, whether in the streets of Paris, Marseille, or Nice, walking into a bakery, buying a loaf of bread, and then as soon as I'm at the door, tearing the bread in half and throwing half of it in the garbage, because the half that had been directly handled by the baker's assistant or cashier or whatever, they directly grab and handle the bread with their bare hands. The same hands that are handling money, raw meat, beef, chicken, the same hands that they'll use to pick something up off the floor or touch their shoes. The very fundamental breakthrough of the germ theory of disease, normally given as something that marks the end of the Dark Ages and the beginning of the Renaissance. Depends on when you put it on the calendar, shall we say. The germ theory of disease remains fundamentally unknown to the French. And if you dare to point this out to them, if you say in Paris, in Nice, in Marseille, if you say to them, pardon me, I don't really want to eat a loaf of bread that you've directly handled with your bare hands, directly coming back and forth to the cash register, directly handling other groceries that include raw eggs, raw meat, etc. That just doesn't interest me. I'm not buying a rock. I'm not buying a pet rock to put in a fucking terrarium. I'm buying already baked bread to put directly into my mouth. It's not a banana where I can take off the banana peel. All right? By handling the bread in this way, you've made its value go from $1 to $0. I would now pay to not eat it. And yeah, sometimes you throw half of the bread in the garbage because that's the half you saw them handling. But before you got there, they were handling it the same way before they put it on the shelf. The French have no concept of the germ theory of disease. I've done humanitarian work in third world countries where people are genuinely illiterate, have just genuinely lacked access to education, where they're kind of learning about this stuff for the first time. They're way better off than the French. They are way more advanced than the French. The former French colony of Cambodia, the former French colony of Laos, they are way ahead of the French. Because if you dare to point this out to the French, you know what you get back? Ego. How dare you? Who do you think you are to tell me how to do my job? Well, you know what? If you work in a bakery and you don't have the concept of the germ theory of disease, that you have to wear plastic gloves or wash your hands or make some other serious transition that demarcates the hand that handles money at the cash register, the hand that directly touches bread to pass it to me to put in. If you don't know that, then yes, I am in the position to tell you how to do your job, because I'm living in the 21st century and you are living in the 11th century. You're fully 1,000 years out of the fucking loop. And they have this tremendous sense of ego, this tremendous sense of entitlement. I remember going into a falafel shop with my ex-wife. I think this was just before my ex-wife gave birth. She was still pregnant. We go into this falafel shop, and this guy, it's a normal thing with falafels. There are several different bins for the different ingredients, like raw green vegetables, onions, hummus, and then the actual falafel balls and the bread. The guy is handling all of it directly with his bare hands while chatting with other people, while smoking a cigarette, handling the cigarette. Someone else came in to give him money for something, like an order or delivery or something that came in. He's like, oh, hey, man. He pauses for a minute. He handles the money, puts it away. And then he directly, with his bare fingers, handling tomato, like already diced pieces of wet tomato, putting with the same fingers that handle the money. They don't give a fuck. I say to my ex-wife, look, you can tell him or I can tell him. But the reality is, either we tell him, or as soon as he hands us this falafel, we're putting it in that garbage can before we go. Like, if you want to pay him, I can lose the money. Like, what's the point? Just to make him feel better? So we might as well tell him. My ex-wife had to tell him, look, I'm sorry, we cannot eat this falafel. Now, she was pregnant. She's not in a position to just get a head cold and fuck around and be in bed with a head cold for 2 weeks. It's going to have a huge impact on her pregnancy and her first, breastfeeding the baby. Most of us, at most times of our life, just don't have 2 weeks to throw away, even if the only risk we're taking here is the ordinary head cold. Just a cold. Not coronavirus, not amoebic dysentery, or the myriad other diseases you can get by handling food in an unsafe and improper way. You know what? In France, this incredibly high-handed, insulting, self-righteous, smug attitude about their refusal to adhere to modern standards of hygiene. Modern standards of hygiene, I've seen people following. Again, Taiwan, Japan, China, they know. When I was in Taiwan, they would always put on a plastic glove to handle a piece of bread before putting it in a plastic bag. And you know what happened when the coronavirus epidemic hit? They got guidelines from the government saying, no, from now on, you have to have a glove on both hands when you open the bag to put the bread. So I noticed the difference. when I went to buy buns. Like, oh, right, now we got to put, and they're not even using the other hand. They only really touch the bread with one hand. Like, oh, right, the government just cracked down. Because, in theory, indirectly, somehow, the other hand could touch. So that, they understand food hygiene. They understand that disease spreads through contact with food. And that's the crucial vector here. France is willing to roll out every other fucking draconian repressive policy, take all of people's civil rights away, have the police flying drones through the sky, hunting down grandmothers who are walking their dog in the park, as if walking through the grass is going to spread coronavirus, when it's not. Handling falafels with your bare fingers, handling bread with your bare fingers. What goes on every day in every grocery store in France, as well as every takeout food restaurant. That is what spread coronavirus. And this extends through all levels of education in society. If you have some kind of smug stereotype, you're like, oh, well, that's just poor and uneducated people. No, it's not. It's medical doctors and nurses in hospitals at the highest level. I said to one doctor straight to his fucking face, look, I may not have a PhD, but even I wash my hands before I put them inside my wife's vagina. I've seen doctors smug as fuck, refusing to wash their hands when I interrupt them and say, I'm sorry, before this vaginal exam goes any further, there's a sink right there on the wall. I want you to wash your hands. I have gotten in the face of doctors and nurses in France on this repeatedly. And they fucking feel like it's part of their goddamn cultural heritage to handle the food you eat before you eat it and to put their fingers in your goddamn vagina without fucking washing their hands. So guess what, France? More than 20,000 people are gonna fucking die because of this bullshit ego trip you've been on for 500 years. The germ theory of disease. Look it up.
Because I come in here every single day covered in glitter, covered in sequins, covered in booty shorts, covered in nylons, so that I do not violate the terms of service, so that each and every one of you can have both hands on the keyboard, so that you can enjoy the stream, so that you can have a good time listening to me, playing with me, singing with me, smiling with me, enjoying your life, which you do deserve to enjoy. Each and every moment of your life you enjoy, and each and every moment of your life is worthy. You guys, you can do it. You can be the best that you can be, and we can do it together. It's gonna take effort. It's going to take patience. It's going to take a lot of work. But if we don't try, then what the fuck is stopping us from just throwing ourselves off a bridge and giving up and saying, yeah, the planet is dying. The government hates us. The animals are leaving. The aliens aren't contacting us. We might be alone. It just might be you and me. But that's okay, because you really need